right, everybody, ready to roll? Let's do this. Nice being outside, right? Jesse, we ready? All right, our next speaker, Brendan Kane. We've actually got a speaker coming in after Brendan for part of the special event tonight. You're going to be pretty excited when you find out what we're doing tonight. It's kind of cool. Brendan has helped some of the largest brands and celebrities in the world reverse engineer how to make content go viral. Brendan and his team at Hookpoint have generated 60 billion views and 100 million followers for the content they've worked on. Over the course of his career, Brendan developed the first ever influencer campaign on YouTube in 2007, oversaw $200 million in marketing spend and generated $1 billion in revenue for clients. Worked with major corporations like MTV, Viacom, Vice Magazine, Paramount Pictures, IKEA, Skechers, and celebrities like Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Adriana Lima on their digital strategy. Generated over 1 million followers on his personal Facebook and Instagram account as an experiment. Authored best-selling books, 1 million followers, How I Built a Massive Social Audience in 30 Days, and Hookpoint, How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World, and most recently developed the Hookpoint Guide to Going Viral. You're going to love this content. I'm super excited because he also flew in from London just for the purpose of, and not London, Ontario, London, England, to come over and present to us. So Brendan, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. So today we're going to break down, as Cameron said, we've developed a Hookpoint Guide to Going Viral. We're in the process of turning it into a book, so you guys will get a first look at it. And I'll also give you guys the opportunities at the end to get access to the slides, so don't feel like you have to be constantly writing down notes. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have at the end as this pertains to your specific business goals and objectives. So Cameron already covered kind of my background. I've been in this space since 2005. So I started in social media at the very earliest stages, back to Friendster and MySpace. So I've kind of seen everything under the moon of what works, what doesn't work, and have compiled it over the years into this guide that we're going to be walking through today. So these are the elements that we're going to be talking about today. Creating viral content isn't about luck. A lot of people say that, but there is an actual science to it. And a part of that science is understanding how the social media algorithms work. And don't worry, you don't need an engineering degree. I don't have one. I don't know mathematics or anything. So we're going to simplify it for you today. How to make content that the algorithms will love. A simple truth to consistently creating viral content, and the Hookpoint viral content model. Now, all of this can be used for any type of creative out there. It doesn't have to be just organic social media. We've applied it to many different aspects of marketing and content. So after 17 years of canvassing the entire social media ecosystem, we've analyzed billions of views and tens of thousands of videos, and we have seemed to crack the code on social content creation. And we found that most brands have been doing it wrong for the past decade. And the challenging part is, as this social media landscape and as marketing changes, if brands don't change the way that they go about creating content, it's going to struggle to make them relevant 2 to 5 years from now, because it just keeps growing and evolving at a rapid rate. And this is one of the questions we constantly ask. Why would throwing things against the wall work with human beings? It's not about quantity, and that a lot of people in the marketplace are telling you. It's really about the quality of the content and engineering your success. And again, content doesn't go viral when a creator gets lucky. We always see these influencers like a Mr. Beast, the biggest influencer on the planet, and you just say, oh, this person got lucky. It's not about that. They are actually understanding how to communicate at scale to the people that they're trying to reach. Content goes viral consistently when a creator understands the science behind virality. So we're not talking about how do we make one video go viral. It's how do we consistently get our content to break through the noise. And this is a staggering fact. There's over 4 billion content creators on the planet today. And our content is competing against all of it. There's hundreds of billions of pieces of content that are sent out into the world every day. We're fighting against LeBron James, Kevin Hart, Kim Kardashian, that teenage influencer down the street. All of us as brands are no longer living in a world where we're just competing against our direct competitors. So let's break down how we actually win this fight. So the big thing that you have to understand is the algorithms control the reach and distribution of content. They determine if your content is seen by 1,000 people or 10 million people. And they're always engineered to favor content that grabs and holds attention for as long as possible. And you can't beat the algorithms, but you can partner with them. And it's all about how to make the content that the algorithms love, so they want to seed it to as many people as possible. That's it. That's the simple aspect of how you get your content to go viral. Now, learning how to make content that the algorithm loves isn't easy, but it is a simple process. And the big thing to understand about social media and why the algorithms are very simplistic in their nature is all of these social media platforms have a single goal: retention. That's all they care about. The longer people spend on the platforms, the more ads they serve, the more profit they generate. So that is why they're always going to favor content and content creators and brands that can stop the scroll and hold that attention for as long as possible. It stopped working. So our model, and the model we're going to dive deep into today, is built to understand and adapt to how the algorithms work. And we have the data to prove it. As Cameron mentioned, our process in this model that we're going to go through today has been used to generate over 60 billion views and 100 million followers. And it's because it's a systematic approach, and we call it Hook Point's viral content model. And a lot of people ask from a business perspective, well, how is this going to impact my bottom line? Like, how is this going to generate revenue for my company, my business? Well, just imagine today that your brand on average is generating 10,000 views on a post. Well, what would happen if it was 10 times that, 100 times that, 1,000 times that? What would the impact of your business be on your business if you were reaching that many people with your brand and your message? So this is how we work with the algorithms to see results. There's 3 core pillars here. The first core pillar is grabbing attention. Grabbing attention, you're able to rise above the noise. This is the first signal to an algorithm whether your content is worth distributing to people. Because if people are scrolling through their feed, they don't stop, they scroll to the next piece of content, well, you're not playing to their business objective of retention, so they're just going to suppress the reach. Which goes to the second core pillar, which is holding attention. Because attention with substance attracts the most value from your content. So we actually have to play to the actual hook. We're not talking about clickbait here. We're not talking about tricking people, because if you have clickbait or tricking people, they're not going to stick around for very long. And then again, you're not holding that attention. It doesn't play to that business goal or objective of the social platforms, and it's going to suppress that reach. And then the third one is monetizing attention. Attention is maximized once you actually turn it into commerce or revenue. Now, that doesn't mean that we're selling things with every post. It just means that we have to have a fundamental business goal and objective underneath the content that we're creating so that we can maximize that attention. So these are the 3 core pillars. And again, as I mentioned, it plays into what these social algorithms are looking for, which is retention. We're grabbing attention, holding it, and then monetizing it. And everything that we're talking about, I'm not talking about, again, tricking people with silly prank videos or cat videos or pet videos, things of that nature, if they're not related to your brand. Because then it will all fall apart as we get into the monetization of it. So creating content that grabs and holds attention is all of our goals as content creators. And this is how we get it done. It's about mastering the art of creating content that, again, gets people to stop that scroll and watch it longer than your competitor's content. By creating content that performs up to the algorithm standard, you can literally make the algorithms serve it to their users. Now, the interesting thing is all of these social media platforms, we are their product. This isn't like Netflix or Disney where they're creating intellectual property, investing billions of dollars into content and monetizing it that way. They rely on us, the content creators, to fuel their engine. And from all of our research, there's only one proven model that we have found for becoming an expert at creating content that the algorithm will love. And this is the process that we've created that I'll walk you through. So there's 3 core elements. There's the viral content model, a qualitative analysis of viral formats and our communication algorithm. So our content model, this is the interesting thing that we see. It's just this frustrating thing that we see about the creative process. If we look at any other form of innovation, there's centuries of trial and error that go on, and then we're leveraging the data sets of that trial and error to enhance our advancements. So for example, we've worked with some of the largest vitamin supplement companies in the world. And if you think about designing a vitamin supplement, it's not like you just put a bucket onto the table and just start pouring ingredients, stir it up and put it on the shelf. That you'll make people sick. You won't have an effective product. In addition, there's government regulations that are in place to protect against that. You use trial and error of research and the data that came before you to make these advancements before you put something on the shelf. But for some reason, when it comes to content, there's billions of data points available to us for free. And I'm going to show you how we can harness those data points. But we throw them out the window, we discard them in this pursuit of originality. And why? Why is that? Because a lot of content creators believe that originality trumps functionality. But that really doesn't lead to results. And to make matters worse, most companies and brands are following a traditional creative model that is no longer relevant in today's world. It was relevant pre-social media. And this is what the traditional creative model that we see most companies using today. So they start with brand guidelines, and those brand guidelines can be very rudimentary. They can be in somebody's head. They can be in a Google Doc. They can be in a 50-page deck. But they're using these brand guidelines to dictate the ideas that they create in their content. And then they go to these monthly and quarterly content plans where they'll batch produce content for a period of time. Then they'll produce and post it. And if lucky, they're reviewing the results monthly or quarterly. And then they just go back to the ideation phase. So this method is being used by most companies, and it's causing companies to really fall flat. And the reason is it's minimizing the impact of data and research that is really required for success. Because if we go back, we're looking at data at the end point, not the first point here. It's also causing content creators, and I see this a lot, to chase trends or to burn themselves out just endlessly producing hundreds of underperforming videos or pieces of content and not knowing the answers to why this content's not working. And it's very reactive. There's no process in place for accountability, iteration, and learning with each piece of content that's produced because we're batch producing these pieces of content. If you produce 30 pieces of content at a time, the first post underperforms, well, what is your company going to do? They're going to still post the other 29, not take the learnings from that one. And then by the time you've posted the 30th piece of content, you've probably forgotten the learnings from the first piece of content. And this is where it makes your chances of going viral completely dependent on luck. So that's where we see a lot of content creators and brands just kind of feeling like going viral and breaking through is purely luck. So what does work? So this is the viral content model that we have developed, and we're going to dive deep into this today. What we're doing is we're merging content development with meaningful methodologies. So we start with research, and we're going to dive deep into what this means. Most people are just looking at their own content, but we have to look at the larger social ecosystem of understanding what works, what doesn't work, so that we can identify what we call formats, content formats that are really breaking through and analyze them at a deep level. So we do this research, we understand the format that we're going after, we understand what makes that format tick, and I'm going to go through that process in a few minutes, and then we come up with the ideas. We don't just jump into ideas of whatever comes to our head. We do the research, understand what's happening in the larger social ecosystem to inform the ideas that we're going to pursue. And then another big thing is we're going into single iteration production planning, meaning we're producing a single piece of content at a time. Why? So that we can review the granular results. So that we can understand is in our research, when we produce this piece of content, went through this process, did it work? Did we understand it? If we review it with each piece of content, even if something doesn't work, we can find the answers of what element didn't work. And there's two reasons. usually if it didn't work. It's either we didn't understand the research, we didn't really understand what was driving performance in the larger social ecosystem, or we just didn't execute on it properly. And again, I'm going to go through this research and the concept of formats a little bit deeper in a minute. So why this model works for content? Again, the foundation is based upon research. It's not based upon our affinities. Even myself, I've been in this space for close to 18 years. I'm not just coming up with ideas based upon what I want to do. I'm backing it with research. I'm understanding what's working to understand what direction to take. And it provides us with clear data from a competitive analysis standpoint that allows us to have viral content breakthroughs to beat out our competitors. And it utilizes data to inform, again, the ideas so that we avoid this common boardroom conversation. We have amazing ideas, but nothing's working. Why is that? And this whole model is really built on efficiency. It saves a ton of time, a ton of energy, a ton of money and resources. Because before we come up with any ideas, we're learning what is working, what's not working, so that we can knock out things that we would just know wouldn't work before we spend $1 pursuing it. And again, this model that I just walked through, we've used this for brands starting at zero followers, 0 views, all the way up to multi-billion-dollar corporations and brands starting with millions of followers and views. So it doesn't matter the stage that you're at, the model works. And we work with people countless times that have no social media experience at all, and then leveraging this model are able to generate breakthrough success. So as I mentioned, research is a big part. So we have a qualitative analysis process of viral formats. So let's start with trend versus format, because trend is something that is thrown around a lot in social media. A trend is a post or a topic, an idea that is hyped or popularized for a limited period of time. Versus a format, it's a storytelling structure, and it's designed for any subject matter that can last for years or even decades. To give you an example, I started in the film industry, and every movie follows the same 3-act structure, no matter the genre. Whether it's horror, comedy, drama, science fiction, it all follows the same 3-act structure. And that's been used for over 100 years. So that's the idea of a format. And this is the simple truth to going viral. It's about mastery of a single format. Because if you look at the top social content creators in the world, they identify a single format and they become world-class at it. They start understanding the nuances of how to execute at it. It's like Steven Spielberg, when he makes a movie, he's not reinventing the 3-act structure every time he makes a movie. He's using that structure over and over and getting better and better and better at it. And that's what we see, is most people are in the business of creating as much content as possible, focusing on hashtags, chasing trends, time of day. But those things fall flat because it's not mastering communication on these platforms. It's not mastering the storytelling element. So let's go through this actual analysis, and we're going to do a fun little exercise here with breaking this down. And the important thing that I see is the whole social media industry and marketing is really based on quantitative versus qualitative. So what does that mean? Well, over the past decades, brands are really relying on quantitative analysis, meaning they're focusing on views, shares, likes, click-throughs. But that doesn't tell the whole story. It tells you if something works or doesn't work, but it doesn't tell you why it worked or why it didn't work. And that's where qualitative analysis provides these answers. And with our model and the work that we do, we're meticulously researching the top performing formats. At this point, we've analyzed about 140 formats across all social media platforms so that we can understand these qualitative insights that consistently drive results. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise here of where you can actually see what I mean by a format, and then we're going to do this qualitative analysis together. So this is a visual metaphor of formats. There's hundreds and hundreds of formats. There's different formats for each platform. This format works really well on TikTok and also works on Instagram Reels. But this format involves 3 major elements. There's an abstract or complex topic that's being covered. There's a visual representation of this topic with physical objects, and then there's a verbal explanation of the topic. So this is a clinical psychologist on TikTok. She's got like 5 million followers named Dr. Julie Smith. So this is another big point. Any type of content can go viral. It's not about the content, it's about the contextual nature of how you represent that content. So Dr. Julie Smith is going to use this visual metaphor format. So we're going to watch this video so you can get a handle on what this actual visual metaphor format looks like.
Don't make this mistake.
Cameron, do you know how to get the audio?
Don't make.
Yeah. Gotta go to. Where's your settings? I'll get to your.
Settings for Keynote or?
No, for the whole, for your laptop. There we go. There's sounds. I put. There we go. That should be it now.
Don't make this mistake when you're working on your own happiness. Imagine this is you, and this is your life. But like most people's lives, there are problems that can make it toxic. If a fish is living in a toxic environment, eventually it gets sick. So you take her out of the dirty water and put her in a new tank for a while. Kind of like how you take a break, you go on a holiday for a few weeks into a new environment, and it helps, everything gets better and feels great for a while, until you return and go right back to that toxic situation again. And it doesn't matter how clean the water was on your break or how refreshed you feel, eventually you will get sick again. If you want to thrive in the long term, you have to focus on cleaning up the environment that is affecting you every day. I'm a psychologist, follow for more.
So again, this is an example of a storytelling format. And if you look at Dr. Julie Smith's account, this is the only format she does, the visual metaphor format. She's not reinventing each time she wants to create a piece of content or talk about something. She masters every element of this format. And that's why a clinical psychologist can get 5 million followers on TikTok. Again, it's not about the content, it's the way that she's telling that content. Because you can point to probably 100,000 psychologists that are on social media that don't yield the results. And a lot of those psychologists will say, oh, it's because nobody cares about psychology on social media. And that's just not true. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into how we uncover the why. So we just looked at this format, but how do we actually look at how it performs? How do we actually, if we want to tackle this format for our business, how do we actually break it down? So we have a qualitative research process that we call gold, silver, and bronze. And what we do is we'll take this format and we'll create a spreadsheet out of it. And what we'll do is we'll look at the same account, same format, and then we start collecting references of videos using this. And what we do is we break them down into gold, silver, bronze. So gold are the high performers. In her case, it's going to be videos generating 10 million views plus. Silver is going to be the average. For her in this format, it's going to be about 1 million views. And then the bronze are the underperformers. It's going to be about 100,000 views. And what we're doing is we're classifying the videos in this format from the specific channel of the high performers, average, and low performers. And as we watch each one, we're jotting down notes. We're seeing, well, what's happening in the gold performers that's not happening in the average or the underperformers. So we're using that control of the same account, the same format, and then we're creating these hypotheses of what we're seeing, what's different between a video that generates 10 million views versus a video that generates 100,000 views using that. And that's where these patterns start to emerge. So even though she's a clinical psychologist, this visual metaphor format can be used for any subject matter. It doesn't have to be just psychology. It could be fitness, it could be fashion, it could be business. So we're gonna actually do this exercise together. We're gonna watch 2 of her videos. Again, it's both Dr. Julie Smith, same visual metaphor format, And I want you to jot down, after we watch these two videos, which one do you think performed better?
Imagine this is you, and these are all the bad things that happen to you. So each one represents a memory of traumatic experiences that you've been through. And as you go about your life, the thing seems like it's overflowing. Memories just keep falling out when you don't want them to, emotionally overwhelming you, and you can't seem to focus on the rest of your life. So what can we do about it? Well, I'm a psychologist, and this is what happens in trauma therapy. First of all, a therapist would gear you up with all the skills that you need to manage just how painful those memories can be. And then you take one memory at a time, carefully open it up at your own pace, and allow you to process that memory. And then you can neatly fold it up. You can do the same with the next one and the next one until what you're left with is a neat little pile of memories that fit neatly at the bottom, leaving you more capacity to focus on the life that you want to have today.
Okay, so that's the first one, and we're going to watch the second one now. And again, as you're watching the second one, think about which one performed better.
Imagine for a moment that you're stood in front of a busy road with traffic going both ways. And each of those vehicles represents a thought or a feeling coming in and out of your mind. Now, you might be like most other people and spend a good deal of your time in the middle of that road trying to direct the traffic. There are some thoughts you want to hold on to, right? And there's others that you want to push away. But doing that causes more stress because the traffic just keeps on coming. Now, if I asked you to just step back from the curb and watch the traffic, instead of trying to control it, just allowing it to pass and watching as it goes, that would be the process of mindfulness. When you notice that you're trying to hold on to certain thoughts and push others away, see if you can step back from the traffic and let it pass.
Okay, so raise of hands. Who thinks the video on the left with the papers in the trash bag? Okay, and who thinks on the right? Okay, great. Well, most people got it right. So the one on the left with the papers, 12 million views versus the one in the cars with 130,000 views. And this is important because same creator, same format, same type of subject matter. Most people would just jump in and say, oh, this woman's having success, so I'm just going to do what she's doing without understanding it. So what's the difference between these? So the one on the left, there's an active metaphor. There's a clear visual story that involves a manipulation of the object. So she's actually playing with the papers, manipulating the object to demonstrate the topic of the video, which is trauma. Versus the underperformer, the one with the cars, instead of using an active metaphor, she asks us as the viewer to imagine the scenario. She doesn't actually manipulate the object. The tension of it, the high performer, within the first 4 seconds, there is a clear problem that's presented to us. And this is happening on a subconscious level. There's an overflowing basket that's lingering on the screen. Versus the other one, there's no clear visual problem. There's no visual tension. There's just a bunch of cars sitting on the table. Also, the potential energy. Within the first second, the basket and the pile of papers hints to the viewer that there will be some type of interaction happening. People are thinking, what's going to happen with this full trash can? Versus the other one, again, she doesn't reach for a car or have another object implying an interaction that's going to happen. All she promises is a visual story. And then there's a clever aspect to it. Using everyday objects, we all use paper, we use a trash can every day to demonstrate what it's like to live with trauma. It's unexpectedly smart. We say, oh, that was interesting, that was different. Versus using the cars, again, she's asking us to do the work. And when we're consuming social media, we don't want to do work. It's a very passive experience. So it's not really clever. It's not unexpectedly smart in some way. So this is a bit of how we look at content. Again, the key to consistent virality is identifying a format, sticking with that format, but understanding the nuances of how to execute that format. The interesting thing is I went to film school. I started in the film industry. When you go to film school, you learn by breaking down classic films. You watch a Martin Scorsese film. You read scripts. You learn how to write scripts by reading scripts, breaking down all these nuances. But when it comes to social media, there's no school for this. because social media is so easy, any one of you can pull out your phone now, click record, and post something on social media. It's super easy, so we don't have to think a lot. But when you make a film, you have to learn all these elements. So we're applying the same principles of like what I learned in film school and how to do this to this element of really understanding how to tell a story. Again, it is not about the content that she's talking about or the content that any of us are talking about. It's how we tell that story. It's the nuances of it. So when we're doing this exercise, we have over 100 of these different performance drivers that we're looking at. We typically break it down like we did there to like between 3 or 5. So we're looking at visual aspects, storytelling aspects, delivery, all of these different elements, again, to see what are the patterns of what's happening in the high performers versus the underperformers. And this is an exercise that you can do with your company's brand. You choose a format, try and master it, put the reference, the gold reference on one side of the screen and your version on the other side of the screen, even if it's different subject matter, and just start looking at it from a storytelling element. What happened in the first 3 seconds versus the high performer versus your video? What was the tonality and the cadence like? How many edits were going on? What is their use of captions and title cards? So you can really start to understand and pare this down. So another big aspect of what we do is communication, because even in Dr. Julie Smith, she's using a lot of phrases and tones and words and things of that nature that highly impacts the ability to perform. So we have access to a proprietary data set of 1.5 million communication assessments done worldwide. And what it shows us is that most brands are connecting with less than 30% of their core target audience, meaning they're disconnecting or alienating up to 70% of their potential customers, which causes brands to leave millions of dollars on the table. So with this, we've turned marketing communication into actionable math that can be applied to content. So this is what it looks like. Don't get overwhelmed. I promise I'm going to do my best to break all of this down. But if you see here, there's 6 different ways that people are going to perceive your brand and your content. And it's broken down by percentages. So the largest percentage of the population is going to connect with your brand, buy your products or services, share your content based upon how it emotionally makes them feel. The second largest subset of the population is fact-based. So it's 25%. For them, it's not about how it makes them feel, it's does this make sense? They want to know information, time frames, who, what, when, where, why. The third largest is fun-based, 20%. So they want to be stimulated. They just want to know it's going to be an exciting, a fun experience to engage with your content, buy your products or services. 10% is value-based. So for them, it's not about fun, it's not about feelings, it's not about facts. It's, do I trust this brand? Are they dedicated to me? The other 10% is reflective-based. We call it imagination. So they reflect on the world. They wait for us to tell them what to do. So the best analogy I can give you is if you've ever read a biography or any information about Albert Einstein, he was this 10%. He would stare out the window for hours on end and reflect on everything to come up with his best theories. And then the smallest percentage, action-based, is 5%. So they move fast. It's bottom line, they want to go, go, go. So if you've ever seen Mission Impossible, what is Tom Cruise doing in the entire movie? He's hanging off the side of planes, jumping off of buildings. There's even memes of him just running. That's that breakdown. So to kind of solidify this a little bit more, let's imagine this scenario. You have your marketing director and your customer that you're trying to target. On paper, they look the exact same. They're both female, same age range, high income earners, married with children, shop at the same place, university, and educated. So on paper, you would think it'd be super easy for this marketing director to create communication language to connect with this customer. But if we were to look at, in this particular instance, their communication styles, we see they're completely different. And what you'll see is the length of the bar dictates how strong they are in that communication language versus the shorter is the weaker. Now, we have access to all 6. It's typically we are communicating from our top strength. So the marketing director, again, 5%, she's going to be saying, this is the best product, you need to move fast, you're going to miss out, versus the customer just wants to know how it's going to make them feel. So there's going to be a massive disconnect. And in this instance, Again, it's not the marketing director's fault because she doesn't have that level of awareness, but because it's only 5% of the population, she has the potential to alienate up to 95% of the customers that they're trying to reach with the language that they're using. So that's the core problem that we see is most content is designed to best fit how we, the creator, the marketer, perceives the world instead of how the entire world perceives it. And as a result, it alienates a large percentage of the population, causing content to fall flat. Now, an interesting thing is they don't talk about it, but Pixar uses this in all of their script writing. So if you want to see a great representation of this, watch a Pixar movie, like Inside Out with the little characters in the girl's head. That is using it.
Can you, like emotion and feelings, is there some morality around combining two, or do you have to stick with one because then it sends a confusing message?
No, it's a great thing. You want to combine as many of them as possible, which sounds daunting. So let me give you an example. I was brought into a real estate company called Keller Williams by the founder Gary Keller, and they had me do a full analysis of like what was happening in marketing to sell homes. And the interesting thing is it's pretty much all fact-based. It's like, this is 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and an acre of land, and it costs this much money. So if I were to sell a house using this model, I would start off with the facts. This is 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms on an acre of land. And can you imagine yourself sitting around this fireplace on Christmas Eve and how good it's going to make you feel when all of your family is here? And did you check out the pool in the backyard? You are going to have the craziest and funnest parties, and all of your neighbors are going to be jealous. And I believe that this is the best house on the market for you because it's in a great school district. But I recommend booking a time that we can view it because it is the best house on the market and you want to move fast. So with that, I didn't go over the top in any direction, but I took the same subject matter of a house, starting with the facts of 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, an acre of land, then got the imagination, and just by saying imagine, and I quickly got into the feelings of how it's going to feel being around the fireplace. Then I got into the fun and action by talking about this pool and all of your neighbors are going to be jealous. I got in the values and opinions of sharing my beliefs that this is the best house on the market. And then just finished it with, to schedule an appointment quickly, again, playing to the action. So yes, you want to combine as many of these as possible. Brands do get into trouble a lot of times, especially like the 10% values and opinions, because that can turn off a lot of people. You want to talk about like one of the reasons the environmental movement has failed is because it's all values, opinions, beliefs. You're a bad person if you don't do this or don't do that. Instead of talking about, well, how is this going to make you feel if your kids are playing on a beach with plastic? Or it's not going to be very fun playing on a beach and stepping on trash and things of that. Like layering in these different elements is like if you go too far in any direction, you're going to alienate it. So like some of them you have to be very careful with, like values and opinions, to not turn people off, because even if it's 10%, it doesn't mean that all 10% share the same values and opinions as you, or 5% as well. Also, I'm not into politics at all, but Bill Clinton used this to become president of the United States. So if you ever want to go back and see the presidential debate, a woman stands up and says, our family has really struggled, we're losing our jobs, how are you going to support us? I forget who he's going against. I think it was potentially George Bush. Yeah, and George Bush got up there and just shared values, opinions, and facts. And Bill Clinton knew that this woman viewed the world through feelings and emotions, and 30% of the population connects with that. And of that 30%, 60% are female. So what was the first thing he did when he got up? I feel your pain. And that was engineered from the beginning. So it's the same question, the same answer, just contextualized in a different way. So that's really kind of the power of understanding the language that we are using in our marketing, because we could be disconnecting with our messaging from that core customer, even though we are that core customer, because we perceive, demographics, it doesn't change in terms of gender, it doesn't change in terms of age, or part of the country, or part of the world. So that's just an important thing to kind of keep in mind. So again, the idea is to really have your line of communication balanced. So instead of having the imbalances, you balance it out as well as possible. If you want to see another video that did an amazing job with this, if you ever see the Dollar Shave launch video, they do an amazing job of intertwining all of these different elements. There's facts, there's fun, there's feelings, there's beliefs, there's action. So yeah, it's a really powerful way to kind of look at the landscape of it. And again, with this, going back to the beginning, is having this balance in your communication allows you to grab attention, hold attention, and monetize attention with clarity, purpose, and intent. And this is achieved by knowing exactly words and phrases to use, all the way down to facial expressions, body cues, environments, all of that element. And we use this for clients, not just in social media content, but just think about the language you're putting on a landing page or in an email. All of those elements are touch points of your customer, and the language has a lot of power to it. Just a few kind of quick case studies to express this. So this is a prime example of somebody with no social media experience. He was a multi-generational leather craftsman, young kid, but his family had been in the leather crafts business for quite some time. And again, he was stuck at 2,000 followers on TikTok, didn't really understand kind of what to do. And through this analysis process, we helped him design a format that he became world-class at. And this format is called Is It Worth It? So he sells leather goods, purses, handbags, iPhone cases, wallets. But what he did through this process is, with this Is It Worth It format, he'd buy a $500 Chanel handbag, deconstruct it on screen, and tell you whether it was worth the money you paid for it. And the interesting thing is there's no CTAs in any of his content. He just passed 900,000 followers, has done 100 million organic views. But the interesting business application is prior to this, he was spending money on pay-per-click ads and was generating about 10,000 visitors a month to his site. Just through this organic content, his organic visitors to his website jumped to 100,000 visitors a month. Sold out of all of his inventory, became so successful that he created a separate business of selling leather craftsman tools. Again, because we did the research, helped him identify the format, and he's become world-class at that format. Also, you see a BuzzFeed, he's been in BuzzFeed, a New York Times, all of these different things just picked up on it organically because he's gotten so much reach out of it. Another company we worked with, one of the vitamin supplement companies I mentioned, Nordic Naturals. Through this process, we helped grow a line of business from 10,000 a month to over 8 million a month. Created new social accounts for them, beating out competition. And this helped a lot in terms of the retail conversations. Like we helped them broker a deal with Walgreens based upon the success we were having with social media that got their product onto the shelves. So just to recap what we covered today, creating viral content isn't luck. There is a science to it. Understanding how the social media algorithms work in terms of the retention, how to make content the algorithms will love. Remember, grabbing and holding attention. The simple truth to consistently going viral is the mastery of that single format, understanding the nuances of it. And we went over the hook point viral content model. And again, content doesn't go lucky when a creator just stumbles across something. It's not about luck. It goes viral when a creator understands the science behind virality. So if you guys want to get access to these slides, you can just click or take a photo of the QR code. And then if we have time for questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
We do. Well, this is gone.
Do you have a boot camp I could send my social media manager to?
Yeah, we do. A big part of our business is training in this model and process.
How do we get that information?
You can just email me direct, and I'll put you guys in touch, or message me on LinkedIn. But my email is Brendan, BrenDan, @hookpoint.com.
Can you say it again?
What was that?
Again, your email? So
Yeah, it's Brendan, BrenDan, @hookpoint.com.
Brendan, how relevant is any of this for B2B marketing?
It's extremely relevant for B2B. It's just a matter of kind of where you're at in your marketing of whether you want to tackle that. But again, when the numbers grow so large, and it's not necessarily B2B, but I'll give you an example. There is a luxury real estate agent named Ryan Serhant. So his audience, he's selling $25 million properties plus in Manhattan. So his audience is very niche in terms of who he's targeting. But using social media, he's playing to the masses. So like his top videos is, let me take you on a tour of a $7 million mansion. Let me take you on a tour of a $250 million ranch. Those videos generate millions and millions of views a month. And he knows if it's just less than 1% is his core target, he outwins any of his competitors. Like he's even said he's sold $30 million properties just off of a single YouTube video. So this process can also be used for paid marketing for hyper target elements. We're working with a law firm on a class action lawsuit where we're using this process, saved them $600,000 in the first month off of lead acquisition, because we're using this model to understand kind of how to hyper target the people we're going after to generate those leads. So the process is just a fundamental process for any type of marketing that's created.
And B2B is still humans, right? It's not the building that's making the decision, right? It's humans, but so it's still, you're still invoking the same kind of reactions and response, just your product or service is different.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of analysis of LinkedIn content too, using this model. And LinkedIn is obviously can be more targeted on a smaller scale than traditional social media, but it's extremely valuable. But it's understanding the patterns in the communication and the content of what's working, what's not.
Do you make any of your own free content too that's out there for us to like look at?
Yeah.
Your pitch to real estate was very good, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm a Instagram. I have a LinkedIn newsletter. If you go to my personal website, you just type my name. You can register to the newsletter there. But we release a lot of content, predominantly kind of breaking down these elements of content creators, what makes them tick.
Do you ever work with brands and take a piece of their upside instead of charging them for the work?
We haven't yet, but we are looking into that.
Let me chat with you offline about that.
Right.
I'll talk to you about two companies that have, do you know Giddy Up?
No.
Fucking crushing it, a former client of mine, a couple $100 million business. Anyway, I'll talk to you offline.
Okay.
Because you are that good.
Brendan,
What other
Yeah.
questions?
the download, is that the book in a condensed format? You
It's
mentioned the book.
the slides. We're working on turning this into a book. It'll probably be done in like 2 or 3 months. But if you want to check out my more recent book, Hook Point: How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World, we don't talk about it as in granular detail, but we do talk a lot about these principles in there.
Any final questions? 2 or 3 more minutes?
So you mentioned like the framework when you were talking about films has kind of been the same for the last 100 years. Do you expect with social media changing so much that the framework around how to go viral on social media will change, or do you think it will stay the same?
I think that there'll be nuances, but to give you an example, we've done a lot of analysis on the man on the street format, where you approach random strangers on the street. That format's been around since the late night show era. And we've done like 7 different breakdowns because there's different versions of it. Like I have a friend that has 20 million followers on TikTok. He's a professional photographer and he approaches random strangers on the street to offer them professional photo shoots. He's been using that format for 3 years to amass 20 million followers. So there are certain times where you hit an inflection point where you do need to shift. But again, it's all storytelling. Are you engaging the audience? Are you telling an effective story? And I think, social media catches people up because there's a lot of people talking about like time of day and hashtags and frequency and all these things, and not actually talking about the most important thing is how do you tell an effective story? And that's where certain kind of formats can burn out, but it's years. Like if you look at Mr. Beast and his success since the beginning, his format is basically the same. He's just evolved it over and over and over again. And he's over 300 million subscribers across his channels at this point.
So I have an outsourced social team as well as a video production team. If we were to engage with you, do we then take that model and teach it to them, or is your team now replacing them? That's what I'm not really.
Yeah, we don't do any creative execution. All we do is strategy and training. And I would just say the biggest delineation of success or lack thereof is just mindset. It's just like, are you coming in, because you have to unlearn a lot of things, especially if you've been in social media for a while. And it's just like, again, like the Tanner Leatherstein example, he had no social media experience. We just took a hand doctor, no social media experience, shooting content on her iPhone. She hit 200,000 followers on TikTok in her first 6 weeks, and then she closed her first publishing deal because she just listened and absorbed everything and followed the process. So it doesn't really matter. We can work in any type of scenario.
Just a quick question. So, if you hire someone, is it something which is now taught, for instance, at communications or something? So basically, with the, how to effectively communicate, is it taught at universities, for instance, or is it just?
Well, there's a lot of classes on how to effectively communicate, but not how to effectively communicate on social media, because it's a different means. Like most of the communication classes and courses and books are like, how do you communicate on stage? How do you communicate in a boardroom? How do you communicate one-on-one? But social media is a completely different ecosystem.
Yeah, but currently now, for instance, I'm talking about university courses, so we're hiring people into our marketing team who just graduated, for instance, from corporate communications, right? So this corporate communications is part of the marketing faculty, teaches them also basically how to communicate through social media, etc. So I was just wondering whether this is taught already or whether they actually still teach them the old...
A lot of the old tactics and things. Like I've seen everything under the moon, and like honestly, we do very well with people that have no social media course experience, no social media experience at all, because we're starting from kind of a blank slate. But I mean, we go up against Harvard MBAs and Harvard graduates and Ivy League graduates in coming out of marketing things, and they just don't have the things. Like the litmus test for me with this is going to the top viral video marketing agencies in the world and sharing this with them and working with them to see that they don't have these level of insights. And these are creative agencies that are working with the biggest brands in the world that average retainers are $250,000 a month. So, I mean, that's kind of why I use the film analogy. I went to film school, and the principle of actually dissecting and understanding the best filmmakers and storytellers for some reason is lost with social media.
Thank you.
So our business is ethical fashion. We are on retail, and we already do a lot of the storytelling. We call our salespeople storytellers, and our social media is basically that, like showing the process of the artisan. But we kind of like, we need to go and see the artisan to get the process, or it's not like very, very good quality, the videos that they send. So how can we improve that? We already are doing the storytelling, but what we can do to improve our videos or to engage with the audience?
Well, if you have an external company creating it, or external people in your organization creating the content and you're guiding it, it starts with the creative brief. It's like, it starts with your understanding of this, because how can you guide somebody else to increase the performance if you don't first understand it? Like we were just working with YouTube on the YouTube Shorts initiative, and like our insights were being leveraged for their creative briefs with influencers. So again, it really just starts with the understanding of this so that you can guide the people creating the content to, and I'm sure you have the story. I'm sure the story is there, but it's not just about the story, it's about how you tell the story. It's like the nuances to it, like what we did with Dr. Julie Smith. I wasn't really talking about the content that she was talking about, is the elements of how she was expressing that content that made the difference.
Thank you.
What's kind of the best strategy for coming up with a good format? Is it just like trial and error, getting started, like testing, or?
It's a great question. I never would advise to come up with a new format from scratch. There's billions of data points available to you with hundreds of formats out there that have been proven. Go identify those formats, but the most important thing is don't just look at a high-performing format and just choose it without doing the analysis of the high performers versus the low performers. Because when people look at people succeeding with a format, they're looking at 1%. It's like the iceberg analogy. They're looking at the tip of the iceberg, and they fail to analyze the 99% of other people that are failing with that specific format. But I don't recommend creating an original format.
Okay, well, how would that differ, but like for originality in that case, then, like if you're keeping like a similar format to what's already out there, then how do you?
Like Tanner Leatherstein, Is It Worth It? That was another format that we reinvented, the man on the street format. There's so many different variations. Like the fashion photographer, there's another guy on TikTok, Hunter Prosper, 6 million followers. He just interviews people on their most emotionally charged aspects of their life. And again, it goes back to movies, is you don't sit down to watch a movie and be like, oh, this is another 3-act structure movie. It's like you get into it and you get evoked in it. If people are looking at it and be like, oh, I've seen this format before, it means you're not telling a great story. So it's the way that you express the format that makes it unique. I'm not saying people copy people's content, but copy the format and the structure and learn from that structure to deliver your own.
Kind of piggybacking on that question though, is there a format that might be best suited for a specific industry and or product?
Yes, I mean, we've analyzed like 140 formats, and we also kind of guide people on the format to choose based upon their level of skill set.
Like limit it down to 3, like, then what one you
It depends on the business and kind of the skill set, and also the platform. Each platform dictates different formats, but there's different ways to go about that.
We got 2 questions here, and then we'll go back to Julie, and then we got to wrap. So
Yeah, to that point, do you have a list of available formats? Can you just Google, like, you know, mastery of a single format? Visual metaphor is one format. Man on the street is one format. Is there like a list somewhere?
There's no list. We have a extensive library and database that we pull from. It takes us about 2 days to analyze a format, and then we kind of guide people, our clients, through the training and also understanding which format would be best for them. Because we need to understand the business, what they're trying to achieve. Like the other big thing that gets lost is people look at their competitors. Your competitors are typically not performing, so oftentimes you have to look outside the social, your industry or niche. Like with the visual metaphor format, again, that can be used for any industry. So it's kind of understanding that as well to get the best guidance on it.
there's another question here. No? Julia, last one.
That was my question.
Oh, was it? Awesome. Any final question then? Brendan, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.